Many of us have said, "Take my will and my life, guide me in my recovery, show me how to live." The 12 steps and 7 signs in John's Gospel describe a process of transformation through faith. Both the 12 steps and the 7 signs chronicle a progression. The process begins by acknowledging a problem. The process continues as a person experiences a spiritual awakening. The process culminates in a new way of living and serving others. In John's Gospel, the 7 signs are not just miracles. They reveal Jesus' divine nature and point to profound spiritual truths. Each sign reveals an aspect of Christ's identity and human reality. They culminate with the sign of resurrection. The first sign, found in John chapter 2, verses 1 through 11, is water into wine. Jesus reveals his power. He transforms something ordinary into something extraordinary. Jesus uses the possible to address the impossible. This first sign symbolizes a new spiritual beginning. Changing water into wine is a powerful metaphor for addiction recovery. A life of lack, shame, or reliance on old methods, water, comes to an end. A life of abundance, joy, and grace, wine, through a higher power begins. Here is how the miracle relates to specific 12-step recovery principles. The wedding party ran out of wine. This represents the exhaustion or total failure of self-will often felt by addicts. When the wine ran out, the human situation was helpless. The guests, representing the addict, were powerless to fix the crisis. This led to the need for divine intervention. Mary instructs the servants, "Do whatever he tells you." This mirrors turning one's will and life over to a higher power. It highlights obedience and reliance on guidance rather than self-reliance. The first sign also pertains to steps 4 through 7. Changing water into wine symbolizes replacing old, rigid, and insufficient ways. It is a cleaning up of one's life with the new wine of grace. It represents the internal transformation where God removes shortcomings. The new wine was better than the first, and it was provided in vast abundance. This correlates with the promises in recovery. One finds a life better, more fulfilling, and more joyous than the life of addiction. The guests, or addicts, focus on the wine. The miracle focuses on the wine maker. In recovery, this is a shift in focus from the substance or the problem. The new focus is on cultivating a relationship with a higher power. The steward remarked that the best wine was saved for last. Despite a broken past, a better future is possible through faith and sobriety. Jesus brings abundance to areas of life that have run dry. This new wine turns brokenness into wholeness and emptiness into fullness. The second sign is found in John chapter 4, verses 46 to 54, and it is the healing of the royal official's son. This sign demonstrates that faith alone is enough for healing and salvation. Jesus' physical presence isn't necessary for healing. Faith alone is sufficient. The official is desperate. His son is at the point of death, we're told. His status and resources cannot save him. He comes to Jesus, acknowledging his own powerlessness. The official hears Jesus, is in the area, and travels 20 miles to ask for help. He moves from doubt to a tentative belief that Jesus can help. This parallels step 2, believing a power greater than oneself can restore sanity. The official moves from seeking a magician to trusting a healer. Jesus says, "Go, your son will live." The official must trust these words without seeing immediate proof. He does not demand that Jesus come in person. Rather, he obeys and goes. This is step 3, deciding to turn our will and lives over to the care of God. The official surrenders his demand for a specific, controlled outcome. He trusts in Jesus' word alone. He takes action based on faith. He starts his journey before seeing the result. Like the official, those in recovery often must walk home. They live for a while before the full evidence of restoration is clear. On his way, the official learns that his son has been healed. His faith deepened, and his entire household came to believe. This reflects step 12, where one's spiritual awakening is shared with others. The son's healing leads to a household's transformation. Recovery often heals the family system. The third sign is found in John chapter 5, verses 1 through 15, and it is the healing of the paralytic. Jesus restores a man who has been helpless for 38 years. This underscores Jesus' power to restore those who are spiritually powerless. Divine intervention frees the individual from long-term bondage. The man was trapped in a state of hopeless limitation. Jesus asked him if he wanted to be well. He immediately offered excuses about why he could not get into the pool. This parallels the first step of acknowledging powerlessness over the addiction. I have no man to put me into the pool recognizes that self-effort has failed. The man represents the addict who has become comfortable in his dysfunction. He has been waiting for external help that never comes. Jesus does not offer to lift him. Instead, he commands, "Get up, pick up your mat and walk." This aligns with becoming ready for God to remove character defects in step 6. It also meshes with humbly asking him to do so in step 7. It challenges the victim mentality or codependency. It calls for the individual to take responsibility for their recovery. The mat was the symbol of his 38-year paralysis, his baggage. By carrying it, he is, in a sense, making amends for his past, steps 8 and 9. He is walking away from the life of codependency and into a life of action. He's letting go of old behaviors. The healing mirrors the spiritual awakening described in step 12. The mat he was carrying now acts as a witness to his transformation. Later, Jesus finds the man in the temple and says, this is that is part of step 10. See, you are well again. Stop sinning, or something worse might happen to you. Jesus highlights that physical healing, or sobriety, is not enough. True recovery requires a deeper moral and spiritual change. This prevents relapsing into a worse state. The man's no longer a passive recipient of charity. He is living in a new way and showing others the result of recovery. The fourth sign is found in John 6, verses 1 through 15, and it is the feeding of the 5,000. Jesus shows his power to sustain life. He provides a foretaste of the spiritual nourishment he offers as the bread of life. The disciples cannot feed the great multitude. This echoes the addict's realization that they are powerless over their addiction. Philip indicates they don't have the resources to solve the problem on their own. The disciples made an honest assessment of what they had. This is like making a searching and fearless moral inventory. It requires honesty about limitations and willingness to turn them over to God. They only have a young boy's 5 loaves and 2 fish. This is an insignificant amount compared to the need. This represents bringing whatever small amount of faith or sobriety one has. Like the boy, addicts must surrender their small, broken, and limited resources. Jesus takes the small offering and multiplies it. Recognizing one's need for help leads to a power greater than oneself. Before feeding the crowd, Jesus gives thanks or gratitude. The 12 baskets of leftover reinforce a recovery idea. God provides more than enough grace to cover the leftovers of one's life. The fifth sign is Jesus walks on water and calms the sea. Jesus' power over nature illustrates his ability to overcome chaos. With that power, Jesus can bring peace to a troubled soul. The disciples were expert fishermen, but helpless against the wind and the waves. This parallels an addict's inability to control their addiction. Jesus walking on water shows God's power over this chaotic, uncontrollable sea. When the disciples were afraid, Jesus said, "It is I. Don't be afraid." This mirrors the shift from fear to trust. It recognizes that God can restore sanity and peace amid life's many storms. The sign notes Then they were willing to take him into the boat. This highlights the necessity of willingness in recovery. Recovery requires actively inviting help to navigate life's challenges. Trying to steer alone leads to relapses. Jesus did not immediately calm the wind, but first calmed the disciples. This relates to spiritual awakening. Inner peace is found despite external circumstances. Upon receiving Jesus into the boat, they arrived at their destination. This mirrors the shift in perspective in life when actively working the steps. The sixth sign, found in John 9, verses 1 to 7, is the healing of the man born blind. Jesus' act of supplying sight shows his power to overcome spiritual blindness. He brings light to the darkened soul. The sign mirrors the process of moving from brokenness, denial, and isolation. The man was born blind, a condition completely beyond his control. He lived as a beggar, dependent on others and physically limited. This represents a state of absolute powerlessness. Addiction is often a condition that feels, or initially is, beyond one's control. The man did not initiate the healing. Jesus saw him and chose to heal him. The man had to trust in a force outside himself for restoration. This corresponds to realizing that a power greater than oneself is needed. It requires turning over one's will to this higher power. Jesus gave specific instructions. Go, wash in the pool of Siloam. The man had to take action. He had to walk into the pool blind to see. This represents actively working the steps. Taking inventory, step 4. Confession, step 5. And making amends, steps 8 and 9. It is a willingness to follow a difficult path toward healing. It requires trusting in a process or the program to bring results. The man moves from darkness to light, both physically and spiritually. He gains the ability to see things as they truly are. This aligns with step 11, improving conscious contact with God. The scales fall off. The person sees the destruction of addiction and the beauty of a new life. After being able to see, the man repeatedly testifies to what happened. He says, I was blind, but now I see. He stands up to the Pharisees, witnessing to the power of Jesus. He does so even when it leads to his expulsion from the community. Recovery often involves moving away from past guilt and shame, step 5. Even painful, destructive experiences can be redeemed and used to help others. This sign is a journey from darkness to light. It's a journey from active addiction and isolation to recovery and community. It mirrors the 12-step process of confession, action, and testimony. The seventh and final sign that we find in John 11, verses 1 through 45, is raising Lazarus from death. This culminating sign demonstrates Jesus' ultimate power over death. It represents the promise of resurrection and new life. Lazarus is dead and decomposing, symbolizing a state beyond self-help. Like a person in active addiction, Lazarus is powerless until Jesus intervenes. Jesus calls Lazarus out, representing the effectual call to abandon the old life. It is like confessing wrongs and asking to have character defects removed. Jesus commands, "Take those grave cloths off of him and let him go free." This directly parallels the ongoing work of recovery. One must shed addictions, old habits, secrets, and behaviors. They can be called grave cloths. Lazarus is brought back into his family and the community. This represents the restored life and spiritual awakening that comes about. This sign highlights the shift from death to life. The goal is ongoing transformation. The past is left behind. The present is celebrated as gift to be shared. What were the parallels between the 12 steps and the 12 signs? Steps 1 through 3 focus on a surrender to a higher power. The spiritual principles are acceptance, hope, and faith. An addict must first recognize their complete lack of control over their addiction. They cannot begin a new life without recognizing their powerlessness. Wine from water and the healing of the royal official's son tie with steps 1 through 3. The transformation of the person begins by admitting their helplessness. They must turn over the water of their unmanageable life to a higher power. Doing so ensures a spiritual wine. The official's faith, expressed from a distance, leads to his son's healing. The addict must trust in a higher power they cannot see. Steps 4 through 9 deal with moral reckoning and amends. Take a fearless moral inventory, admit your wrongs, and make amends. These require courage, honesty, integrity, humility, willingness, and love. The stage is about facing the painful truth and seeking reconciliation. Steps 4 through 9 parallel the healing of the paralytic. Jesus addresses the paralytic's sins by healing him. Addicts confront their past mistakes and seek spiritual healing. They seek to reclaim their lost powers. Steps 10 and 11 focus on spiritual maintenance. Addicts continue personal inventory, seeking conscious contact with God. They pray for knowledge of God's will. The focus is on reinforcing perseverance and deepening spiritual awareness. This reflects the ongoing commitment to personal and spiritual growth. Steps 10 and 11 align with feeding the 5,000 and walking on water. These signs demonstrate Jesus' consistent provision and presence. Jesus provides in times of chaos and need. The signs mirror the addict's ongoing reliance on a higher power. Step 12 is about service and transformation. The step seeks to share the message with others. It intends to practice the acquired principles in all affairs. We deal with spiritual awakening. The ultimate outcome is a transformed life lived in the service of others, healing the man born blind, and raising Lazarus mesh with step 12. The signs represent complete spiritual transformation and rebirth. Just as Lazarus is resurrected, the addict experiences a new life. The healing of the blind man symbolizes his newfound purpose and mission. He carries the message to others who are still in darkness. The 12 steps and the 7 signs share 4 transformative concepts. They are powerlessness and surrender, healing from within, community and service, new life and purpose. Please join me in the Serenity Prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference, living one day at a time, enjoying one moment at a time, accepting hardship as a pathway to peace, taking, as Jesus did, this sinful world as it is, not as I would have it, trusting that you will make all things right if I surrender to your will, so that I may be reasonably happy in this life and supremely happy with you forever in the next. We complete the presentation with several slides that ask discussion questions. If you're in a group, you might find them helpful for conducting a discussion. If you are watching this presentation alone and you do journaling, you might find the questions helpful in writing some journal entry.